Good morning and welcome to episode 14 of the Cinchy Learning Series. Today, we're going to be covering off customer success intelligence, how a data fabric enables stronger customer relationships. We have a special guest joining Dan today. Welcome, Rahul, to the Learning Series. Rahul has spent over 20 years in the financial services industry, driving business value and operational excellence by managing the delivery of complex technology systems. He's worked across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific regions with clients spanning the private and public sectors. Currently, Rahul leads our customer success experience, and sets the bar very high to deliver excellent customer outcomes. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Joanne.
Yeah, okay.
So today, with covering customer success, really just one thing that I want to emphasize. If you remember from past episodes that on a data fabric, data is managed as an interconnected network. So you've all, I'm sure, heard the expression customer 360, client 360, 360 customer. And imagine in the context of a network, that's a bit of a almost silly statement because it's 360 everything. Because the idea is that all data is interconnected. The only question becomes, where do you start? So do you want employee 360? Do you want customer 360? Do you want...
I guess looking back, I don't think they are relevant because they don't tie into our strategy or recommendations. So...
Thank you. Today, though, we're going to showcase specifically around the customer, but imagine what you're able to see you can apply really to any...
and then to make sure that civilians are...
I'm going to pass it over to you, and I'm going to mute that.
Okay, perfect.
I'll stop sharing, and then I'll figure out how to mute.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Let me share my screen. All right, can you all see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the Dan showed you the visual. So this is the real visual of that. And some of you who have joined our past sessions is familiar with this visual. So this is, again, just driving into Dan's earlier comment, is everything 360. And the power is essentially how we architect the data and how the data is connected. And that can drive pretty much anything that we want to look at from the 360 level, be it customer 360, which today we are going to get deeper into, but we can get employee 360, we can get vendor 360, we can get pretty much any 360. And it's essentially the stepping stone of how the data is architected and connected, which drive the value of 360. So let me quickly jump into the customer success domain. So this is our live network, and I'm zoomed in into the customer success domain. And as you can see, that this domain is pretty well connected to all other domains in Cinchy. So let me quickly go through with some of the tables or some of the objects that we have in here, and then I'll get deeper into the 360. So this is our accounts. So think of accounts as our major customers at the account level that we manage. So all the information about accounts is managed here, and accounts linked to the customers, because an account can have one or multiple customers in the ecosystem. An account has an account manager, which is linked to employee, and that's the connection point to the HR directly from the customer success. I'll come into the customers at the end, because that's where we want to spend most of the time, but let me just quickly go through some other objects.
Hey, Rahul, one thing just to add is the shape of the network that you're showing is very specific to one company. In this case, it happens to be Cinchy. But when customers are deploying the fabric for themselves, their model and their network is going to be potentially radically different because it's shaped around their business. So as an example, For us, an account has multiple customers. An account could be, for example, a big global bank, and we could treat individual business lines as customers. And that's just how we choose to name things and organize our information. But if you're, say, a retail bank, well, that is reversed, because generally you'd have a customer that can hold multiple accounts. So keep in mind, is everything that you're seeing is what would be adapted to your very specific business that will undoubtedly evolve over time.
Yes, that's correct, and that's actually the beauty of Cinchy, is that you can drive the platform according to your business needs and business requirements than the other way around. That here's the rigid model, and then change your business according to the model. Okay, so I'm in the health checks now. So health checks is essentially how we manage the health check of a customer, and that could be a periodic meeting with the customers where we collect like NPS or promoter score. We collect any feedback, and that could drive into the product enhancements and changes. So all of that information is managed here. There's a knowledge base, which essentially is anything that is related to that particular customer, be it the proof of value information, project information, anything specific that we have done or achieved for that customer that is helpful from handing over from one team to the other, and going back to see that what we have done for that particular customer. Next is the project estimate. So that's our tooling to do any estimation for any related project for a particular customer, and that drives the cost and capacity and forecasting for the customer success team from the consulting perspective. Support groups and ticket severities are coming from Freshdesk. So we use Freshdesk as a ticketing system, and these two information are coming from the Freshdesk into Cinchy on every 30 minutes. And that is what we use to manage our tickets. And some of the data is coming through Freshdesk into Cinchy, and some of the information natively managed into Cinchy as autonomous data. So here are our tickets, and let me actually open and show you a couple of examples in the tickets ecosystem that we have. So these are all the open tickets that we have, and as you can see that many of them are read-only, because these are coming directly from Freshdesk into Cinchy, but there are a couple of columns which are read-write, which I have access to. So for example, I can connect this particular ticket to a backlog ID if that ticket requires any changes in the product. I can put any specific comments to these tickets, but these two columns does not exist in the Freshdesk and managed autonomously within Cinchy. So let me go back. And the final item is timesheets.
So actually, Rahul, on that, so there's an example where you have data that is pulled in from an external source. In this case, it happens to be a SaaS app called Freshdesk, which we use for basically customer-facing interactions to raise tickets, etc. But we want to create an association between a ticket and our product backlog. And now, in our case, we don't use a technology like Jira. For those of you who are familiar with that, we actually manage that as autonomous data, and we're going to showcase that in a future episode when we cover product management intelligence. And there's some pretty interesting reasons why we did that, and some advantages that we gain from that. But regardless of that, and even if we were using Jira, you want to create that seamless association between your tickets and your backlog, just as an example of where that connectivity comes in handy. Now, Freshdesk itself has no such connectivity to that, and you wouldn't want to do point-to-point integrations. That's the old app-centric approach. But with data-centric, again, Freshdesk is connected to the fabric, and separately, your ticketing, your product backlog system may either be created in the fabric or connected to the fabric. And regardless of that, you're now able to freely create that association between that, where you get the benefit that that link will continue to work even as the model changes and evolves and these systems come and go. So if you replace Freshdesk with an alternate ticketing system, that association, those links will still be preserved. And that's the concept of plasticity that we covered in past episodes. So that's just one example of the interconnectivity across domains.
Yeah, that's correct. The final item is the timesheet. So timesheets, again, the connected data comes into picture, like timesheets in a customer success domain versus invoice, which is in the operations domain. But there's a connectivity as the time that the team fills is against an invoice, and that time is also filled against a project to track the interdependency between a project and the person booking time, and then generation of the invoice from that time. So that is also another example of the connected data that we use. But I think the most important thing that we want to talk about today is customers. So let me just jump into the customers table and show you the customer 360. So this is a view where we have all the customers driven into the tabular format and all related information. But for this, we created a skin on top of the data that we already have. And 3 days ago, this skin was not in existence. But we wanted to quickly connect to create a 360 view of the customer by connected all the related information. And why were we able to do it? Because the way the data was architected in a connected format, and that's where the power is. Putting the skin on top of it, and in this case, we did the metadata form view, but putting the skin on top of it is trivial. Our customers are using this methodology now to actually drive from inception to go to market in the matter of weeks to drive that particular outcome. And what we also did as part of creation of this 360 view is use the existing capabilities that were covered as part of the earlier learning series. So if I quickly jump into there, so for example, we used here autonomous data, where some data is originating in Freshdesk, but everything else is managed within Cinchy. And to Dan's earlier point, you can choose to get that information from other sources as well. Metadata driven forms, which I'm just gonna open and showing you that. There is universal access controls that was part of Learning Series 7 that is also in play here. There is a data synchronization from Freshdesk that is also in play here, and there is conversational intelligence that we covered as part of episode number 11. You're welcome to go back and look at any of those, but this is the combination of all of those capabilities and quickly put together the 360 view of the customer. So I'm going to cover the sections as well as the connectivity to any other domains. For example, we have sales domain here, we have customer success domain here, we have operations domain here, where we connect all the data and then create this 360 view. But before I jump into there, does anyone have any question so far? Nope. Okay, I'll flow through and let us know if you have any questions, and also use the chat in order, if you have any questions, just post it there. So here's the summary view of the customer, like the logo, the bio, where we have all the information about that customers in our Google Drive, whether this customer is onboarded, which product version the customers are using. Here's the intelligence about customer, which is what the segment of this customer, how much revenue that customer have, how many employees, if this customer is, again, syncing from an external source, what is the external source ID? In this case, happens to be Salesforce, and this is the Salesforce ID for that particular customer. Who are covering this customer from Cinchy's perspective. So here's the primary contact that is from the customer, but I am designated customer success lead for this customer. Dan is the account director, and Phil is the BDR. But you see, I can change the customer success lead, but I cannot change the account director and BDR, because that data is I don't have access to change. It's just coming from our sales domain and sales ecosystem. here are all the documents that are shared for that particular customer. In this case, I have access to the legal agreement and I can see that, but depending on who logs in for that particular customer, they may or may not have access to that legal document. So in this case, I logged in as another user, and this user, again, looking at the same customer ABC Inc. But if I click on the documents, then they don't have any access to see any documents here because they don't have access. So that is one example of creating one skin on top of the metadata, but we have data-driven entitlements. So depending on who is logging in and looking at the same customer, they may see information or they may not see information. So in this case, this person does not have access to see the document, whereas if I go into summary, this person can see the production version, but they don't have access to edit. So this is driven through the data, and then the same access control will be impacted in the tabular view as well as in the form view. So this is all the related information for the customer at the account level, but I can now pull in the information from sales domain. So for example, here are all the opportunities that we have for this particular customer, like which stage we are in, what's the expected ARR and one-time revenue that we may have from this person. I also have links here that I can directly go into different domains. So let me open one. So this will take me directly to the particular opportunity for that customer. And again, in the revenue intelligence, we covered this in detail. So if you're interested, welcome to look at episode number 11. But this gives me all the information about the customer. For example, that this opportunity is open for 180 days. Here's the revenue. And again, depending on my access, I can change it. So for example, I have access to change what's the estimated revenue that we can expect from this deal, but I cannot add any attachments because I don't have access to that attachment. I can leave that. Let me go back into
Hey,
the
Rahul,
360.
sorry to interrupt just quickly. If it's not clear to everyone, ABC Inc. is not a real company.
Yeah.
But we've created this really just to for this demo. Is obviously we didn't want to show any information about our existing customers, and we won't do it. But if Rahul were to click next on the top navigator, he would see this information dynamically rendered for all of our existing customers. And again, that was went from a concept to deployed in production across the organization in 3 days of duration. In reality, it was under a day of effort.
Yeah. So the other information about this customer, again, if I jump into the leads, here is everything for the leads. Same method that I can click on the form, I can open it. I won't bother to do that. Here are all the orders for that customer.
Sorry, Rahul, where are the leads and opportunities coming from?
So leads and opportunities are coming from Copper. And that is our another source that we sync data in from. Again, the same concept as we have for the fresh desk, where some information is coming from external source, but most other information, which is the autonomously managed within Cinchy. Same concept, but the value that is bringing is that tomorrow, if we remove Copper and if we move into Salesforce, nothing breaks. It's basically just one thing that we need to update, and everything else works because now the data is in the fabric and it's connected.
Right. So just to say that, because I think that's an important point. So if we moved off of whatever platform we're using as our CRM to Salesforce, or moved off of Salesforce to another platform, is the skin that is created here would need zero changes as a result of that, because the skin is driven by metadata and it's connected via the fabric, and therefore it's decoupled from the existing system or the future systems nuances and app-specific data model and app-specific logic. It's essentially fully decoupled from that, so the systems now become pluggable, plug and play.
Yep. So these are all the orders for that particular customer, and here you see the total orders. And again, I have access, so I can see the dollar amount, but depending on person logging in, they may or may not have access to that particular dollar value. Here are all these sales agreements, the fiscal years or MSA effective date, our URL for master service agreement, and then there are tasks and reminders connected to that, where we get a reminder 6 months before the MSA expiry date, so that we can do related work to make sure that we renew the MSAs, et cetera, et cetera. Here are the engagements. So Bart loves to attend our learning series, and Bart attended our last learning series as well. But this is any engagements that we have with the customer. Bart also registered for our newsletter, which is amazing. Now I'm driving into the health checks, which is all part of now customer success. So this is our quarterly meeting with the customer and the related leadership team for the customer, and you see that everything is going on green, which is great. We have a 10 NPS from this customer. So this also is data driven, where it provides the information to us when a new customer is added, that we need to set up the quarterly checkpoints with that particular customer. Here are all the projects that are running for that particular customer. So again, it's running as green, and we expected to finish this project by end of January. And I can again go into the related project details if I need more information for that particular project. All the tickets, these tickets, as mentioned earlier, are coming directly from Freshdesk. I can directly click here and go to Freshdesk, or I can look at this information within Cinchy. And as you see that there are 2 tickets which are closed for this customer. One was SEV2, one was SEV3. The severities are also determining our SLAs for that particular customer. And there are reports which generates out of this, which provide us insights on if we are in compliance with our SLAs for our customer. Here is the onboarding information of that custoor. Do we have any?
It's Michael Hubbard here. Can I just ask a quick question there?
Sure.
So you had the open form and or go right to Freshdesk on that previous tab. Can you feed data from Cinchy into Freshdesk via this form?
So not directly via this form, but the connectors that we have for any external source are always bidirectional. So the way we get data into Cinchy, we can get data out from Cinchy as well. And that depends on the configuration and where we would want to manage that data. In some cases, the external source is the authoritative source, and we pull that data and we don't send it back. But there are some cases where we send this back as well. So there's a learning series demo, Jonathan, I don't know what the number is, but we exactly demo that how we connect to Salesforce, and we pull that data in and we send the enriched data back to the Salesforce in near real time.
Rahul, just to add to that, and that's a good question, actually. And the reason that when you're applying kind of a data-centric architecture, you wouldn't want the form to go direct to Freshdesk is what you're then doing is you're creating a tight coupling. So think of the form as interacting with the fabric, and then the fabric interacts with Freshdesk. So what that means is that form can interact with the entire fabric, not just Freshdesk. You don't have to build any form to Freshdesk connectivity because it's separately connected to the fabric, which it's already connected. So it really simplifies when you're building an experience. You're building it in a way that is unsiloed, because that form can interact with any data, whether ultimately it gets pushed into Freshdesk or some other ticketing system or stays on the fabric. It no longer matters. And then it's a separate concern from what are the links that you create between Freshdesk and the fabric. And that dramatically simplifies your ability to create and gives you that flexibility where apps really become, as they should be, disposable, because the data is the asset, not the app.
Did that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah, I'll say I kind of knew that already, but I thought it was a good question to stick in here to kind of reiterate that part of things.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for that.
And I don't work for Cinchy.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a follow-up here probably. So I see that we will be linking different application as a source to the Fabric. And the question is that if I were to enter data into Freshdesk using, because I'm in the context of that situation at this point in time.
Yeah.
And when I'm in that context is when I want to go to that form and update my data also. So is there some sort of a deep linking possible with that application? So let's say Freshdesk was to give you some sort of a URL for a specific form, which at atomic level of this Fabric view that I am at right now allows me to link there, maybe in a form of a metadata as well. So is that something that's going to be there? It's available right now. Yeah, that's the space. Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, and that's another good question, and I don't think you work for such other, but yeah, so that's a great question, and the answer is yes. So the form that you're seeing, this metadata form, you're seeing it inside of the application header where you see the Cinchy logo, but that can be popped out and accessible because the meta forms is just an example of an experience that's built on the Fabric. That means that it can be accessed within the metadata experience, but also outside of that. And you're not limited to forms that are metadata driven, like what you're seeing here. That could be really any custom experience. You can build it in Angular, you can build it in React, you can build it in anything. But yes, you can have a deep link from an existing system that will open up a form that is metadata driven and sits on top of the Fabric and pass in data such that it essentially creates the ability to have seamless interoperability at the application layer, but there's no data movement between them. It's basically, again, the separation of a skin from how the information is managed.
Got that. Thank you.
Yeah,
That
we
was helpful.
actually have a couple of implementations with our customers exactly doing that.
Thank you.
Right. For a moment, I just want to go back to the to here and let me filter for this particular account. And I'll show you one probably last thing, which is the intelligence for the addresses. So here's our customer. I just zoomed in, and if you see that, here's the billing address, and there's an intelligent billing address, which basically is resolving the address that I'm putting in here. So for example, if I change this to Man Street, they saved, but the address still resolved, and that is cool in terms of if someone is entering any data and do any mistake, then we still get the real data. I can actually type here Cinchy, and I deliberately made a mistake, but it actually resolved into our head office, which is in Toronto. I can pretty much put anything. So if I put CN Tower here, then it's resolving to the address directly. So that is the intelligence which is built into Cinchy for address resolution in terms of us getting the right data in.
And Rahul, there you flipped into the tabular skin, but you can do the same through the metaform as well.
That's correct.
And that's just an example of a very simple self-contained use case of applying intelligence on top of your data, which is real time. And in this case, Rahul was typing in this information, but that could have come from another system. So that could have been let's say you're syncing in data from Salesforce and you have an address, but you want to validate that address actually resolves. Well, now you can apply intelligence to that and validate that it is in fact correct and now consistently formatted. And whether you want to do that for addresses or any other piece of information, you can do that as well as then feed that corrected value back to the source system. So imagine if you are in a legacy system, could be a mainframe, could be Salesforce, could be anything, and I misspell someone's name or I misspell the address and I press enter and now it self-corrects. Even though that mainframe in Salesforce or whatever system I'm using doesn't itself have that intelligent capability, that's the power of collaborative intelligence.
Yep, thank you for that. I think I am done. There is some other information about the customers. One is the conversational intelligence, which again we covered as part of our Learning Series 11, where I can now see all the conversations for that particular customer. I can just go and look at the recording. I can get the metadata out of that conversation, and this gives me the transcript of that particular recording, which again I can use for any use case that I want to. And then we have social media and any notes for that particular customer as an information as part of Customer 360. So again, just to reiterate, the value is how the data is being saved and architected, and creation of the skins are pretty trivial and can be done within our metadata form view, or can be done in any other technology like that. The power is in how the data is saved. Are there any other questions that we can take at this moment? Perfect.
There's no questions in the chat box either.
Over to you, Joanne.
Okay. Dan, did you want to just put up the deck again?
Yep.
Thank you. So thanks everyone for attending. Just want to give you a view to what's coming up next week. It's going to be very exciting. We're taking this 360 view and we're just carrying it one more step forward. We're going to be talking about Household 360 for wealth managers, how to create a data-centric blueprint with a data fabric to increase your share of wallet. I think it's going to be a really interesting session. We've got a great team of our solution architects and wealth experts coming for this chat. So please sign up. I put the link directly in the chat so you can just connect with that. And then finally, if you're interested in seeing how this could specifically apply to your organization, I would highly recommend that you book a deeper dive. You can visit cinchy.com/deeper-dive. I've also put that link into the chat. I'd highly recommend that everybody just does a copy paste of all of the links that are sitting in the chat, and you can get the specific videos that we referenced today, as well as all of these links, and sign up for next week's session. And I'll just leave it open for a second to see if there's any other questions. We can stick around for a few more minutes if there's some burning things that you would like, and we can take them off of the actual recording so that you can feel comfortable about asking your questions.